Hello. Beam's finally got another update, and since my videos on Beam updates seem to do very well, I'm here to talk about this one. You'll have to forgive my voice. I'm recording this at 8 AM, and I really haven't bothered to warm up, so at least for the start of this video, I'm going to sound very hoarse. Up until now, we'd only had one supercar in the game. It was the Bolide, which you saw at the very beginning of the video. It's essentially like an 80s or 90s Ferrari, and while it's very nice, it's kind of difficult to drive. Now, however, with this new update, as you can see, we've got something a lot more modern. This car, which I believe is called the Scintilla, that's probably how you pronounce that, is a lot more advanced than the Bolide is. So let's take it for a drive. Although my driving isn't really good enough to demonstrate this well, as compared to the Bolide, the Scintilla is a lot more understeery than oversteery. In other words, the Bolide is hard to keep in a straight line at speed, and this is hard to turn. Overall though, it's still a much better handling car and it's more enjoyable to drive. Now, to me, this car doesn't really look as good as its 80s counterpart, but most of my problem with it is just in the front styling. I think otherwise it's a very nice looking car. Now, while this video is not meant to be a comprehensive look at all of the things added in this update, you can just check the videos made by the developers themselves for that. I do want to look at more configurations of this car, because it's got some very interesting ones. This first one is called the GT Spider, but because it's very similar to the default version of this car, except just without a roof, I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking at it. Next up is the racing configuration of the car, and, well, unfortunately it's not as easy to drive as the normal versions. Yes, though the road-going versions of the Scintilla are generally fairly stable, and if anything they're understeery, the racing version has a tendency to lose the back end in corners. The good news, though, is that unlike most racing configurations of cars in this game, the racing version of the Scintilla has ABS, which is particularly good for someone with a heavy-handed driving style like mine. I'm curious as to how the racing version of this car would compare to the standard version of this car in lap time, given its handling issues. You can't tell from this video because while adding some of the B-roll shots, I've had to retime the clips. The apparent lap time of the cars won't be what I actually drove. There's also a drag spec of the car, complete with nitrous, and, well, as you'd imagine, it's pretty fast. Of course, as I have just found out, the car unfortunately doesn't have the braking power to get stopped again from full speed. Now we're starting to get into the more interesting configurations, starting with this rally one. It has an absurd amount of power for a rally car, and so naturally I've taken it to one of the smallest rally circuits in the game. With a little bit more caution, it does fine on the jump. Well, mostly. If you're careful, it handles surprisingly well for what it is, I think, and I'm kind of impressed with it. It's not every day that a rally car with this much power actually works. The knockoff Batmobile you see in front of you is the next configuration I'll be looking at. I won't be driving it for very long though, because, to be honest, I just don't like this configuration of the car very much. It doesn't drive very well, and I don't think it has many differences to the other configurations other than a different engine and worse bodywork. So I not entirely unintentionally crashed into a lamppost, and we move on to the next car. Finally, we get to the craziest configuration of the car added in the update. This is the off-road version, and I've taken it to the jungle to, well, mostly drive on roads. Once I finally find a dirt path, the car demonstrates its surprising ability to climb nearly vertical hills. In the interest of getting this video out even close to the time the update came out, I think I'm going to end it here. So thanks for watching and goodbye.